Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, we got P.Kidd stepping in for Pat, and we'll be breaking down the biggest disappointment so far with the Chicago Bulls season. Is the front office just delaying the inevitable and needs to go ahead and blow everything up? And who has the most trade value currently on the Chicago Bulls team? We'll break it all down and more right after this.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Chicago? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Bulls. We're joined by Mr. P.Kidd himself, one of the hosts from the Windy City Breeze. What's going on, kid?
Man, appreciate you having me, man. It's a pleasure. Let's talk about this dumpster fire of Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, man, it's wild, unfortunately, man. So the Chicago Bulls have started off quite bad. I think we said at 2-5 on the season right now. We do face the Utah Jazz today. This was a season that coming in, Bulls talked about changing their shot profile, talk about wanting to play with more tempo, move the ball a little bit more. And those things have happened to a small degree, but the results have stayed the same. So, kid, throwing it over to you, man. When you look at the Bulls season so far, what has been the biggest disappointment to you so far?
I don't think the pickups that AK made, specifically Carter, has had the impact that we all thought it would. Like, realistically, when we picked him up, we thought, hey, maybe we have this veteran who could come in, he can knock down a three, but maybe he's our starting PG and get things over. That was the one thing I looked at. I was like, he was never that guy.
Yeah.
And clearly now, even though he's had decent games from a shooting perspective, I'm not going to take that away from him. It's kind of picked up from that. What we really need, and clearly, like, what we need is still missing. And we can only keep saying that, oh, Lonzo Ball. That ship sailed. He ain't played ball in like 4 years. Like, let that go, right? At that point, let's stop holding on to that. AK's had enough time to kind of right that ship, and we've seen flashes of that even with Patrick Beverley. So my biggest disappointment is I don't think Jevon Carter, even now after 7 games, is the person we need for that. And I don't think Kobe White's a point guard. I don't see that working in that regard. So the biggest disappointment for me is the continuity aspect without making major changes from that one position just doesn't work for me.
I agree with that. I think I talked about this over on Central for a little bit. I said that it feels like AK and Eversley have taken that brief 35-game glimpse that we had, which was a great glimpse of us playing with Lonzo, and they've just held on to that so much that they're just like, let's just get back to that. Let's just get back to that. And it's like Lonzo's such a unique point guard that it's very few players that can step in and just replicate what he's going to be able to bring. And I think that, like, that inability to kind of move off the type of team that we were then and try to just get back to that is just put us in this hole where it's like it's just not going to happen. And to your point, I love Kobe, and I like the growth Kobe's made, and he can play point guard, but he's not a point guard, so to say, right? And Jevon Carter coming around a little bit better, playing better, really kind of finding his spot, but I still don't think he's quite that either. So I definitely agree with you on that one too. It's like, I don't know, man. And I think until AK is ready to make find some tough answers to some tough questions, we're just going to keep treading water here, man.
And then it kind of goes back to, it sounds like we say the same thing every time, but it's like, there coaching. I'm going to harp on this because, again, I think we do have the talent. I think we have the talent in the people we could use to have a better record. I'm not going to say it's going to be Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine type thing, right? But I think we have the talent there in a lineup that exists there. But Billy Donovan's way of trying to go through and find that just doesn't seem to work, in my opinion. Now, what's your thoughts on that? I don't want to go too far off topic with that, but I kind of like, do you feel where I'm coming from with that one?
I do. Like, the Billy Donovan thing is just like the issues with Billy Donovan are always going to be the issues with Billy Donovan, right? Like, we saw Billy take out Jevon Carter when he was hot, like several times, right? It's just, like, what is he doing? I don't understand how you don't know how to ride the hot hand or don't understand how to balance rotations. And that's one of the biggest failings of continuity. The whole point of keeping continuity on the team is that the coach understands that talent so well that he can utilize them better. We're still talking about the same things we talked about when this team first came together 3 years later from a coaching aspect, and that's a big problem too.
So my question now is AK's biggest adjustment going to be what he does with coaching first? And I know Pat is always of the ilk that, hey, Billy Donovan's going to be here for 10 years. I think we're in a new age of NBA. I think we're in a new age of sports, period. I don't think you're going to see that too much longer because everyone has a platform. Everyone's a little more vocal. You can hear some of the tremblings that kind of exist when it comes to how they're led in that respect. And that kind of always boils down to coaching. And so eventually something has to shift. My question is now, do you think AK is going to sit there and pull the trigger on that first? Because would you agree we have the talent that exists here for us not to be so disappointing?
Yeah, I think we have the talent to be a playoff team. I don't think anybody's going to make the argument we have the talent to be championship caliber, right? But we have talent here, but you have to use and balance that talent. And Billy Donovan isn't that. But I'm going to counter back to your point. Like, I don't even know if it's an AK decision anymore. Billy Donovan, when he said, what was 2 media days ago, I talk to or text Jerry Reinsdorf every day, that's when I was like, hey, man, he might be here for a minute, bro.
Hey, I got the plug. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. It was
the job. We got the bag secured on job front.
Because we've seen it before, right? With it's a different degree. John Paxson won championships here, so it was a different level of, you kind of understood why Jerry Reinsdorf loved Pax so much. But it took Paxson to be able to go to ownership and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing anymore, for them to fire him. And so I worry if that's the same. Keep in mind too, Billy Donovan's extension hasn't even kicked in yet. We don't even know how much it's for. So I wish I could get with you and say that I hope AK makes a move off coaching, because I do think that's probably the first move that should happen. I don't know if I necessarily trust that it will, though, if that makes sense.
When you put it that way, man, hey, listen, he's texting his boss's boss. Exactly. I don't know what to make of that one. So I mean, you got a point there. I think it would be kind of remiss of me to, and even you to even say this, is despite our record and everything else, should Patrick Williams be the biggest disappointment?
That was going to be honestly the next question I give you. And I think yes. And I know that people are going to say, well, P. Will's role was never X, was never Z. And I agree with that. I don't think his role was to score 16 points per game. But the fact of the matter is this, is that for a team that hasn't changed much, one of the things that you're relying on is your young players to improve. P. Will has taken a step back. The one thing you could bet on him last year, he was going to shoot the three ball effectively. He's shooting the three ball at 12% on the season.
I mean,
that's disappointing.
It's only 8 games though. 82 of them joints. It's only 8 games. I mean, I got to be the voice of reason for those who are still riding for him. Got to give them a good old try.
Hey, I remember one of the first times me and you ever got into a conversation.
Man, your mic just went out, bro.
Oh, my bad. I don't know what happened. But I was saying one of the first conversations me and you ever kind of got into a back and forth with a debate about was Patrick Williams. So hearing you kind of trying to defend him now is a little wild.
I mean, hey, listen, the funny thing, it's not as if he can't develop. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. Yeah.
I don't want to be that person that, this is the one thing I've always hated about sports talk. We label players and they get stuck with this label and it carries with them for the entire career. We never allow them to grow or change. And so I don't want to, it's all in jest normally when I say that. And, I remember that conversation. That was wild. Yeah. But in all actuality, you just got to be realistic. It's okay if he's not him. Yeah. He's still an NBA player. He was a starter on an NBA team. Now I know that's that's kind of like cherry picking that or whatever phrase I'm supposed to be, but you get what I'm saying. It's still he made the NBA. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that he's him amongst his peers. That doesn't mean that he's going to make that leap. And it may not be this particular team. We've seen people go to other teams and be in different situations and their career kind of blossom and evolve. Yeah. I just look at the reality. He wasn't that in college. Mm-hmm. He was drafted too high. And when you get drafted that high, you have high expectations. Yeah. When you're top 10, you're supposed to be him. You're supposed to show me you're him. Unfortunately, that ain't what we've been seeing. And when you go out there and he's done it to himself because now he's asking for money. And I find it really interesting that everybody that was riding with P. Will, they start turning on the moment money got involved.
200 million
if he's
getting involved.
Give him his bread.
Yeah. I think what P-Will just comes down to, we know that he has there's something there, right? The superstar level, the Kawhi comparisons, all that's gone now. He hasn't shown that nearly, but at this point now, Pat has to show that he's going to be able to be a consistent player at the NBA level, at any level. And so, I will say the 2 games so far coming off the bench looks better, right? And that may be his role. But the problem is you didn't draft somebody 4th overall to be pretty good coming off the bench, right? Like,
that's a fact.
So
that's a fact.
We'll hope, man. Go ahead.
Do you think, and let me cut me off if I'm going too far over, but do you think that this is more along the lines of the system around him? Because Kawhi Leonard may not have been Kawhi Leonard if it wasn't for the people he was on. He was around the championship caliber people.
Yeah.
He ain't got that here. So do you think it's more that could be the case? I'm trying to play devil's advocate. No, I'm trying to give him some hope.
It could be a part, because Kawhi went to a team and a coach that had a plan for his development. Pop explains the way that he wanted to develop Kawhi very eloquently, and so I think you also had players at that time that were veterans that said, "Okay, yeah, we're gonna start empowering the young guy." Here, Zach LaVine and DeMar, it will empower you mentally all day long, but guess what? They ain't giving up too many shots for nobody.
That's a fact.
They ain't giving up too many shots for nobody. But
we in the air.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, though, we're going to be talking about, is the front office delaying the inevitable by not going into a retool or a rebuild sooner rather than later? But before we get into that, I got to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors, and that is Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying your tickets to your next event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals and all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind when you purchase. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after its start. It's the place to find last-minute tickets. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsor deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll find the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Gametime. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, kid. The toughest question right now, man, and it's a question that we've literally been hearing, man, me and you being Bulls content creators for probably 2.5, literally, probably since the moment Lonzo went down. It was, should the team go rebuild? Should they retool? When you look at this roster, do you think there's enough to salvage here to where retooling could save it? Or are you more leaning towards the side of kind of a rebuild?
If you're not going to change coaching, then yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to sit there and say that I'm not a Billy Donovan fan like I used to be, simply because of just the way that we've seen him utilize it. We kind of talked about it in the last segment. Just some things just don't make sense. And I almost feel like him and Luke Getzey kind of share game plans at times. So like, I don't get it. Like, clearly they anyway. But so like realistically, if you're going to ride with Billy Donovan at the helm, then yeah, you're probably going to sit there and retool. I think Billy Donovan is really good for really young talent.
Mm-hmm.
I give him that nod. I don't know if he's good at leading a group of veteran individuals to a championship. He's never done it, for one, but we haven't seen that he could. We haven't even seen that. Like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't seen him do that unless he's had like a generational talent next to leading that charge. And even then, it wasn't championship caliber. But I mean, you can make a lot of excuses for it. So ultimately, yeah, they are delaying the inevitable realistically. And it's I want to sit there and say, okay, see, he just had Paul George and Russ, but I've been corrected on that. Am I wrong on that?
I think he had one season of KD, right?
I don't think he had KD at all.
Yeah, he had one season of KD in the 2015-16 season when they won 55 games.
Okay.
Yeah, so they made it to the conference finals that year. They lost in the conference finals, and then that's when they moved on to having a different makeup of the roster there.
But I vaguely remember this. That all right, let's just call a spade a spade. It's still two generational talents on the same team.
Yeah,
You
for
ain't
sure.
got that.
Yeah.
So, like we ain't got KD walking through that door. Like I'm sorry, it's just not working. 2015 KD was a monster. They had Russ, Mr. Triple Double himself was a monster. We don't have that type of talent in on this particular squad that will sit there and muscle you through some of these mistakes that I think he makes as a coach. And at the same time, I don't think we have the same supporting cast. That team was a young team that supported each other in ways that the Chicago Bulls just don't. And it's just a totally different dynamic. And I just don't think he's the right voice for that. And so now it's, you're delaying the inevitable by doing this, but it could also be AK's master plan, because if you look at what he did with Denver went through a lot. And I've said this on the Windy City Breeze. There was a time in which people thought that they should have moved off of certain pieces, even in Denver, before it became what it became, and they rode with continuity. And so it's one of those things where it's like they were kind of mid, then they were like always in the hunt, but you never thought they were a championship team. Like realistically, up until the last couple of years, did you really think that Denver would be a championship team?
Yeah, no. I mean, you could see a path to that, right? But I think I always looked at Denver as being they got to have the right matchup in the playoffs, and then they could definitely get there. But they excelled and they grew from that. They have really good coaching on top of that. And something I just looked up and looking at this thing, the year that Billy Donovan won the most games in his coaching career, it was not only him, but Monty Williams was his associate head coach.
Oh, it was Monty.
So not only did he have two generational talents, but you also had a coach that it was eventually going to be coach of the year. Like, that's crazy.
I'm sorry, Billy D. Monty won them games, baby. I'm sorry. I can't do that. God.
That's something I never really look at as who's this assistant head coach. And I didn't even look to see that. I was just scrolling and I was like, wait a second. Monty Williams was the assistant head coach on that team? Yeah, they had a squad. And I think that's the thing. Like, and it's fine being a coach that can manage superstar talent. I don't want to knock anybody for that, because it's hard for some coaches. But we haven't really seen Billy Donovan have the type of success that I think the Bulls were hoping when they brought him in, when you didn't already have young players that were really developed and already superstars. And so when you come to this and you see him like heavily rely on a DeMar DeRozan, heavily rely on Zach LaVine, and they're kind of able to do their thing, it makes sense, because that's always how Billy has found success at the NBA level. And you have these really, really flawed, not even they're definitely not superstars. Some would even say they're borderline stars at this point. It all kind of makes sense into where we are with this Bulls season right now. So like you said, unless they're going to change coaching, unless they're going to move DeMar, unless they're going to move Zach and look into doing something seriously to kind of change the makeup of this team, it's going to get to the point to where we're just, like right now, people saying tank. We may not even have to tank this year for the number one pick if this team keeps playing this way.
And you know what's funny about that whole situation? Like, I can see, like, if you look at the construction of our team and you look at what Denver was a few years ago, we may not have the generational talent in Jokic, but we have a very similar kind of setup to there. If you like really look at it. And I mean, maybe if you squint, turn your cocky head sideways, right? But I mean, like, so, but I say all that to say, you have to have a change of philosophy, because I just saw Vooch put up a 2020 game. It lets me know he has a lot left in the tank. But Vooch was last year was statistically a top 10, top 11 big, both defensively and offensively. And you could correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Just how you play through it. Denver even gives you the blueprint. You can play through your big men and everyone still get their shots and eat.
Yeah,
like Jamal Murray still gets 20 plus points. Michael Porter Jr. ain't seen a shot. He ain't never seen a shot. He ain't like that thing is in the air as soon as he touch it. DeMar, if that's what you want to do, you can do it. There's a way that can exist, but we just don't have that infrastructure here. And I don't want to skip too far ahead into the next topic, but like realistically, outside of, let's just remove coaching. What else would you say could salvage that so that we won't necessarily have to go into this whole divesting of assets and things of that nature?
If you want to make this team work, I think you need one of two things. You either need a point guard that is a true point guard in the sense that you could run the offense and half court offense, because even Lonzo didn't run a half court offense, but I think that could help this team fit together a little bit better. Or to me, you need a 3 or 4, depending on whatever you look at the roster that we have, but you need that player who can also stretch the floor, shoot some threes, but you can also do some playmaking through them and use kind of either the big, the 4 or the 3 position to kind of be the pivot point for the offense. I think those one of the either of those 2 things can help this team drastically, but again, those things aren't coming cheap like that. That's a rarity in the NBA at this point in time. So you're still going to be giving up tons of assets to get that done. Maybe not the core of your team, but you're going to have to be giving up something valuable.
Because of new landscape, this is like a hot take thing that most people gonna kill me for, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense if you look at it. Because I saw this person get played like Ben Simmons the other day.
Yeah.
With James Harden going to the Clippers, I'd be trying my best to get Russ on the Bulls jersey.
Oh man,
now, you can tell me how. I know that there's some stipulations as to how that's possible, but they can't keep all them people. Russ is on a more than team friendly deal, and I know he may not want to leave there, but his role is going to drastically change. They're going to play him to the left so hard. Like he would be a starting point guard here, no questions asked, and everyone would eat with him. Simply just him being Russ, because he ain't taking them shots. You can see it. They play so far back off of him. It's disrespectful, but it is what it is. Now, now, am I wrong or go ahead, kill me on air? It's okay.
I think Russ, he also has familiarity with Billy Donovan, so that makes some sense there. I just think the money, it's not really that bad of money with Russ either. I think the Bulls kind of missed that window. Because I think that maybe that should have been the target at last year's buyout market, and then maybe you could have convinced him to come here. So I'm gonna throw it back to you on this one. Do you think it was a bigger mistake not just keeping Pat Bev, who had the Bulls rocking and rolling to a degree? Was it perfect? No, but it was a point guard that, and if you heard the recent clip, he more than believes in Billy's system. And I think that helped him run the system a little bit more because he does believe in Billy's system. Do you think the Bulls missed the opportunity in holding on to a point guard that was already here for 23 games and they moved on from him?
Absolutely. I think anybody who's actually just watched that second half of Bulls basketball with Patrick Beverley versus what we have now and what we had before, you could see the clear difference. You can see the difference in it. Zach LaVine looked like a different player. Everyone looked different. And you had a real floor general. No, he wasn't going to get you 20 points a night. That ain't his role. That ain't what we need. That ain't really what we want. I got 3 other people who could get buckets like that. I don't need him to do that. So no, not only did they drop the ball, but I think Billy lost his biggest cheerleader in that respect, because now I don't think anyone really bought into his system that same way.
That's big facts there. We're going to end the show up next asking which one of the Bulls has the most trade value if they were to go ahead and explore the trade value for everyone. Before we get into that, though, I got to talk to you guys about our sponsor, and that's FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Speaking of your team, the Chicago Bulls are heading into the matchup against the Utah Jazz, -4 underdogs in that matchup. So there you guys go. If you want to make a little money, you think the Bulls can pull out the victory, go ahead and bet on the Bulls there. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, include spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. They changed that like a end part of the ad read, bro. It's been the same for literally 6 months. And they changed it when it's autopilot there. All right, kid. Trade, I'm talking a little bit about the Bulls maybe delaying the inevitable. So if they were to pivot right now, which players do you think could net the Bulls the most back on the trade market?
Honestly, I mean, obviously, Zach, realistically, you look at what he can do, what his contract actually is, and where the market is going. He comes in at a steal realistically, because I mean, you look at some of his contemporaries. I don't know why, I don't know how, but Jaylen Brown got $300 million.
That's crazy.
You can't tell me that Zach and Jaylen Brown ain't on the same tier of player, if not Zach being better. So you look at, and I know everyone was tripping about paying Zach that money now, but now if you look at where the money is going, Zach is actually a bargain for some teams who are looking for his caliber of player. So not only would he net picks, I think he would net another young developing player and potential star as well. Like let's not act like Zach ain't 20. What is he, 25 a game?
Yeah, I think right around 23, 24, I think at this point on the season. So Yeah, I mean, Zach definitely, Zach is right now 22.3. But Zach definitely, I think, will get you the most back. He's still young enough, right? The teams can convince themselves. We know that they hold the value high. We've definitely heard that they want 2 first-round picks, a young player and a veteran to fill salary. So that gives you a nice, and if you make the right deal, it gives you a nice bit of assets to kind of jumpstart that rebuild if you're going to go into that. Now, I don't know if I trust. AK and Eversley may use Zach as that last trade chip. I think that they may try to move some other things first to see if they can find something to make around Zach work. But I definitely agree with you. He has the highest. I would say probably next up after him, though, is Alex Caruso. How do you feel about Alex Caruso on the open market?
Man, he has the highest plus minus on the team, if I'm not mistaken. At least one a top 2, if I'm not. Last time I checked, what he does so much on the court, and he's just a really valuable asset. And I think contractually, he doesn't actually harm a lot of people's cap at that point either. I see exactly where you're going from that. I do believe he has one of the highest plus minuses on our team for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And defensively, he is kind of locked down. So
yeah,
I can see it. But I'll be honest with you, outside of him, obviously we go DeMar expiring contract. So
for sure, I think with the DeMar, because it's expiring, because he's a veteran, because he's over 34, he makes the most sense, right? To at least exploring the trade market first. And I know that we've heard like those contractors talks may have stalled, things like that. And to me, if you give DeMar, and this is not a slight to who DeMar is as a person or what he's been as a player. Hey, listen, he just passed Larry Bird and Gary Payton on the all-time scoring list. Great career, right? Yeah. But if you give DeMar DeRozan a contract, that's just telling us you're doubling down further on mediocrity.
Why you got to do DeMar like that, bro?
because listen, it is like I said, DeMar, DeMar deserves another contract. Do not get me wrong, but we are talking about a team that has had a negative plus minus as a team with Zach, and Vooch on the court.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like it really just comes down to the business aspect of it, right? This isn't a negative on DeMar. Do I think that a better coach can probably make it work? I honestly think, and this will never happen, but I think if you move DeMar to the bench, it changes a lot of things. Because now you have a scorer off the bench with a mainly defensive unit, things like that. But it will never happen. It would be such a slap in the face to DeMar for this team, a 2-win team, to say, "Hey, we need you to come off the bench."
You know what? I never did. I don't disagree with you because I've said all off season. Moving DeMar would probably help these young players so much more because they can't rely on him to save them.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that mentally happens too much. And there was a player interview, his name is slipping me, where normally when you have that type of player on your team, people respond differently. But whereas when they don't have that safety net, they perform a lot better. And at the same time, we also have to be fair and understand that DeMar does, I don't want to say hinder other players because they had opportunity. Like, I'm not going to give Patrick Williams that excuse anymore. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But realistically, in some respects, it was something that took away shots from him. I have to be fair on that one. I think in some cases it did hinder Zach from being that guy because a lot of these late game situations that we want Zach to have, DeMar's been the guy closing it. But,
for sure.
And so like it's unfair because I think realistically, DeMar is only in that position to actually close out those games because he has the ability and Zach ain't did it. And Patrick Williams is passing up them shots. But at the same time, you can't deny the fact that, because you're there and you have this reputation and because you have the ability, we don't develop these other players in that way. I don't want to seem like I'm talking in circles, but like realistically, like it's like that it's that double-edged sword right there by having him there. And at the end of the day, he's 35.
Yeah, I'm 34. I think he'll turn 35 at the end of the season. So
you're not going to have a long-term solution with him. I don't think he's going to have a LeBron James career.
Yeah.
At this point, he's kind of served his purpose for the Chicago Bulls. And I hate to say like he's expendable because really he's like, I would argue he's our best player. It's weird, man. But I'm with you on the fact that moving him now to a team that's absolutely has championship, hopes could get us something. I just don't know what his trade value would be. I don't know what you would get back for him. Like, are you getting a first round pick for him?
I mean, I don't think you get a first round pick and a young player. I think you got to pick your poison on that one. So if you have a team that is near championship level, but they have maybe a young piece that plays for him, but of course DeMar will be a little bit more. Maybe you can get that, but I don't think you get that and a first round pick for DeMar at this point because he's also a free agent. If he had like another year or two on his contract, maybe then you can try to work, but they almost have to immediately work on paying him right afterwards. So that may limit what you can get back as assets.
I always look at DeMar as someone who's just in a Lakers jersey waiting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. that's where he wanted to be.
I can see him in the Lakers jersey tomorrow and it'd be like, yeah, that made sense. But yeah. So I mean, I'm with you on the simple fact that Zach will be one of our highest trade values. I think that ultimately, one of those three are not going to be here. Zach, Alex Caruso, I can see being moved. I can even see DeMar being moved. I don't see Vooch being moved. I don't think he has a market as high. I could be wrong though. Somebody else, I think Patrick Williams could be moved. Io could be moved. Realistically, I think Io's well in his limited role.
Yeah, I listed Io as a sneaky trade candidate because he's looking pretty good coming off the bench. And for if you want to move him, get draft assets, a team may really look at Io at this point and say, hey, he's young enough. There's enough still there that we think we can develop at him. They believe that Io could be on the move.
I gotta put you on the spot. So let's say Zach gets moved. Hot take. Where's he moving? Where's he getting moved?
Man, that's a great question.
Don't try to end the episode before you answer it either. I know you.
I would say this is that I would look at a team like Miami to make a heavy push for Zach LaVine. I don't know if I necessarily like what they have to offer back, but I think a team like Miami would definitely make a hard push for Zach LaVine. We already heard the rumors about Philly, but then we heard that the Bulls don't necessarily like what Philly has to offer as far as assets. And then the Knicks, keep in mind, the Knicks have already been circling Zach LaVine for about a year. I think that's another team could look, and they have a bevy. Like I looked at it over the next 3 years or something like that. They have 6 to 7 first round picks. It's crazy.
Hey, it's wild because I used to clown them and all the moves they made. Now I'm not clowning them as much. It's like, oh, y'all kind of did that right. So,
yeah. They kind of set themselves up. So
you kind of set yourself up right there. I honestly thought the Philly thing was going to take fruition. I really saw that simply because the one thing they're missing is Tobias Harris is not Zach, but he kind of makes Zach money. And Tobias Harris would actually fit in a Bulls jersey with what we have.
I hate that you got to
admit he would fit in the Bulls jersey.
I hate that you're right about that because I don't want to knock. Tobias Harris isn't a bad player at all. I don't want to knock Tobias Harris and act like I'm crapping on him. The dude averages 20 points per game on 70% shooting. It's crazy. Tobias Harris is an efficient scorer. It's crazy how efficient he is. But it's
third option.
Yeah, exactly. But that is the type of move that we'll see, and it'd be like, hey, we got Tobias, we got 2 first round picks too, but now Tobias gets to have 25 shots on this team for the next 2 years. There you go. All right, man. Thank you, AK.
Hey, I think it would be good. Can you imagine that lineup? Maybe a Io or Kobe White, DeMar at the 2, Tobias Harris at the 3. I don't know. May throw P. Will in if he's still here. They probably include him with a bag of chips for some type of deal. And then Vooch. I mean, it don't sound the sexiest, but you can't tell me that ain't a lot of good mid-range game being played and probably a lot of good high-scoring games as well. Because Tobias Harris as a third option is like you said, 20 points a game, 70% shooting. He's everything you wanted Chris Middleton to be. He's just not that mid.
Hey, facts are facts on that one, man. Before we go, I'm just gonna throw this quick one to you. Do the Bulls make a major trade by this trade deadline?
I think they have to.
Think they have to?
I think they have to.
I think it's shaping up that way.
What it is. I hate to say it. I don't know exactly who. I think it's you've pigeonholed yourself at this point, and all the speculation that we've said earlier this episode means absolutely nothing, because at the end of the day, you're keeping Billy Donovan. You're going to make some moves to get him something that he can actually coach up.
There you go. Kidd, well, thank you for joining, man. Go and give the people your social media so we can get up out of here.
Hey, man, listen, Haize, I appreciate you having me on Locked On.
Anytime.
As you all know, Windy City Breeze, you catch us over there. You actually see me here at P.Kidd on well, I was about to say Twitter. I guess it's X now. That sounds so weird to say. But again, man, Bear Down, C Red Nation, all that joint. You know what we do in the Windy City Breeze. We all Chicago sports, so we appreciate y'all support over there as well.
Absolutely. Y'all make sure y'all go over there and check out and support them. Make sure you guys are following us as well over at Locked On Bulls. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, lockedonbulls@gmail.com. And for P.Kidd and Pat the Designer, y'all send well wishes to Pat the Designer over there kicking it in the DR, getting that tan. We'll see Pat when he gets back, man. We appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you guys tomorrow, y'all. Peace.
Peace.